Hey everyone, welcome to week 6. Crazy to think we're almost halfway through our course already. Thank you very much for your post last week about homework. It's a very interesting topic. It's a very hot topic in education, whereas previously it was just every kid needs homework, every kid needs the same amount of homework, every kid gets the same, which is not the case anymore and has been proven to not be effective for students. We have to differentiate, which means we have to provide students whatever they need in order to learn. So some of you referenced the idea of homework teaching responsibility or time management. I think that you could argue that it could be, and one of the videos did, could be it could help students manage time. I don't think that you could ask anyone that has really good time management and they would say, oh, I learned it because I did my homework. So there's a fine line there in thinking about why you assign homework. But if and when you become teachers, the one thing that I want you to take away from the idea of homework is really asking yourself why you're assigning the homework and then evaluating and analyzing how it's having a positive impact on your students. So, are you assigning homework for the right purpose? Because it's helping students to practice, it's helping students to learn, it's helping them to increase their reading fluency or their reading comprehension or their math facts, whatever it might be. That's good. Or is it just mundane busy work? That's not good. And then is it having a positive impact or not? Is another thing you're going to have to evaluate in thinking about how are you going to know that? But it's something that you're going to have to decide unless you get into a district that has a homework policy. They'll tell you what your homework policy will be. One thing that I was unclear about, I guess, when in your discussion post last week I asked you to support your ideas with research. I didn't mean outside research. I mean the research that's already provided in your textbook or the videos that I'm asking you to watch. So something I'm a little bit nervous about is whether you guys are actually reading from the textbook or not. In some of your responses, I can tell that you are, and you're using things from the textbook, which is what I want you to do. I don't want you to summarize what you've read, but I can tell, and I have been able to tell in previous semesters, which students are reading the text and which students aren't because they automatically just reference things from the book. And last week when I asked about your parent involvement, some of you had great ideas about how you would support family and parent involvement in your classroom, and you used some great ideas from the textbook. And then some kind of seemed like they came out of left field, and I'm not sure what if those were just your own ideas. But this course is your introduction to teaching, so there's a lot that you have to learn, and it's also like we've talked or like I've talked to you about. It's your decision. It's kind of your choosing time. Is this something that you really want to get into or not? So I am expecting you to read your text and use your text. You're going to have to do that this week. In chapter 6 is a big one because you have a history of education paper due. So hopefully I don't have to talk about that anymore, but I really am hoping that you're reading the textbook. Um, oh, one last management piece. Remember that you have 7 observation hours due by spring break. So spring break is a little less than a month away. In order to pass at spring break, so that's a pass or fail class for the clinical. It's a 1 credit hour pass or fail. In order to pass, you have to submit to me proof of your 7 hours, which is your charting and your teacher signatures. And then I should be able to align those dates with your reflections on your blog. And if you have those two and they're in sync, you'll pass at midterm. If not, you'll have an F at midterm, and then we'll talk about how you can get that grade so that you're passing for that 1 credit course. So 7 hours are due. I'm not able to access Brianna and Haley's blogs anymore. Brianna, your address still doesn't work. Haley, I don't know what happened within that document, but it's changed. I know last week I read and commented on yours, but I need you to get in there and fix that. And I messaged you both about that. And then I assume, Madeline, you didn't observe it all this week because you didn't have a blog post. So just a reminder that those 7 hours are due at spring break, which then leaves you with 8 hours after spring break, which is even less time. So just make sure that you're managing your time so that you're taking care of those 15 observation hours. Okay, this week is history of schools in the United States. So in order to understand why education is the way that it is today, it's important to understand where education has come from. So Chapter 6 is going to be really important for you to read because you have to write a history of education paper this week. In your history of education paper, I'm expecting these things. You have to write, I want you to analyze the United States education system and the history that it's been through. So to do this, you're going to write about a minimum of 3 times, a minimum. So you have to choose at least 3 times in the United States history of education that you read about in our textbook. Then you're either going to compare them or contrast them. You're not going to do both. So you're going to have 3 topics, 3 times that you want to analyze in United States history of education. Then you're either going to compare them, which is what I'm doing in my example, or contrast them. Let's say you pick one and you compare the next one you want to contrast and the next one you want to compare. Fine. All 3 of them you want to contrast. Great. Doesn't matter to me, but you're going to do one or the other. That's the analysis piece. You're going to compare and contrast it to current reality of education. So as I was explaining your compare and contrast, what are you comparing and contrasting it to? Today's education system. So you can use your experiences as a student, you can use your observation hours, you can use your teacher interview, some of that background knowledge that you have, you can use some of the reading that the learning that we've already had so far this semester, to either compare or contrast that. You will need to cite. I'm asking you to cite using APA. If you continue down the path of education, that will be the mode that you will cite in is APA. So I hope you have some experience doing that. If you don't, reference Purdue OWL is a great resource online to be able to cite in APA, but you'll need to cite in APA with a works cited page. And I'm asking you to do it in APA because you'll cite that way if you continue your course down teacher education. Okay, so here's my example. My example is a comparison. So then after this example that I would provide, I need to pick 2 more historical events and either compare or contrast them to today's. Mine's STEM related. I took this event straight from the textbook, but the time era was the Sputnik 1, United States. I did some additional research, so I went to the Governor's STEM Advisory Council website, so I found some additional research to support my comparison. I included a quote from Governor Kim Reynolds in here, so just some things to include in your paper. So if you're comparing or contrasting, you need some research to back it up. It can come from the textbook, but in this case, in the paper case, you might need to find some outside resources like I did. So then in my works cited page, I would cite this. Website. And as you can see, I've already led into that saying Governor Reynolds is quoted on as saying that. So that's my one comparison. Then I would need to choose again 2 other events and either compare them or contrast them. If you have any questions about your paper, please let me know. All of your submissions worked out fine in your docs, and so I'll be able to access those. Those are all due on Sunday. Your discussion this week is a choice sharing week. So there are 3 elements of the textbook that I really appreciate and I think provide a lot of learning, not only for you as students, but also as I read the book every semester, learning for me. So your initial post is due Thursday, as always. I'm asking you to respond to 1 classmates by Sunday. But I want you to choose 2 of these elements from our reading this week. And I don't want you to simply summarize it. We're all reading the text. We don't need you to regurgitate what you read. But I want you to share some insights. So some connections you make, something that you found interesting and why, something that surprised you, something that you want to take into your own teaching practice, whatever it might be. But give us some I'm sharing this with you this week because of this. So here's your 3 options. You're going to choose 2 of these to respond, or to tell us and share with us your connections, learning, surprises, aha, whatever that might be. Okay, have a great week. Enjoy all of your learning about the history of education in the United States, and I look forward to reading all of your papers and also your discussion posts, and I'll be looking on your blogs for those reflections.